Hey there, beautiful souls. I'm Colynn Hlokoff.
And I'm Meridee Hlokoff.
And welcome to Spiritual Sisters with Sass, the podcast where two sisters with a passion for spirituality and a touch of sass come together to explore the exciting world of self-improvement.
That's right, Colynn. We embarked on this incredible journey together, diving into different self-improvement techniques, yoga practices, and a whole array of life experiences.
Yeah, and through it all, we've managed to create lives that are abundant, happy, and constantly evolving. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it, Meridee?
You bet, sis. We've got two very different perspectives on life, but that's what makes this podcast so special. I'm all about diving in head first into life's adventures and embracing every challenge with a bit of sass. While Colynn here, she's got her own unique approach.
Yep, that's me. And I'm all about the yoga, mindfulness, and finding my zen. And together we make the perfect balance.
So whether you're looking for some wisdom, a few laughs, or just some heartfelt stories, you're in the right place. We're here to share our personal experiences and insights with you, all while exploring the wild and diverse world of self-improvement.
So grab your headphones and get ready for a fantastic journey with us. Spiritual Sisters with Sass is here to uplift, inspire, and keep it real.
Thanks for tuning in, lovely listeners. Let's dive in.
Spirit and sass. Here we go. Okay, now let's get started. So welcome everyone to today's podcast recording. Today we are going to talk about self-confidence, what's the word I'm looking for? Personal image, self-esteem, what you think you see versus what the reality is behind people's actual opinions of themselves. And I want to say we're also going to really touch on all people's core wound, which is I am not enough. So let's get started, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So Lynn, I want you to start because this was a conversation we started to have and I was like, stop talking because we need to just start recording. So what she was saying to me is when people see me, they actually don't expect me to say what my, like her personal,
To have the self-image.
yeah, that her self-image is what it is. So I feel like let's get into it right there.
Yeah. So this works quite well. The other day, we were all sitting around and Rafa was sharing a story to us. See girls enduro here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it and it's a girl that lives here in Bihagwal that he follows. And I wasn't I'm like, oh, so you guys just follow each other, hey? And it kind of left there, but my brain just kept going. When did they meet? Did they message each other on Instagram? Like, what is this? And so that kept feeding and feeding and feeding as we continued to watch the show. And then we lay down in bed and he said, what's up? What's wrong? Which is something he consistently asks, which I know is like a trauma thing for him of always like monitoring everybody else's moods. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to be honest because for me, I have not been for a very long time in my relationships. And I think that is unfortunate for me.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Because when I have been honest and I get shit on, that I'm crazy. And so basically gaslit that it's all my problem. Which is actually kind of what started to happen. So he says, what's up? And I said, I'm feeling jealous. And he's like, come on. He gets angry with me. Starts going on about me accusing him of cheating on me, which is, all I said was, I'm feeling jealous. I want to talk about this. We had a couple conversations like, this is someone's cousin. I'm like, so fucking what? Like, that doesn't make a difference. Like, what I want is like details so that I can shut up this because I got a lot of details.
And
But
most of the details we give ourselves aren't true.
yeah, I'm pretty sure they're not true, but I don't know. So maybe we could talk about it a little bit. And I understand this is based on past history, right? My past history has shown me certain things that I now put on a lot of people, like I can't trust anyone, which actually is not just like past history from like the relationship before this one or before that one or before that one. It's actually goes back to a developmental stage in our first year of life. Eric Erickson's psychosocial stages of development. And the very first one is trust versus mistrust. You're a baby, first 12 months out, you cry, mom meets your needs or not. That's it. If mom meets your needs, you learn that you can trust people. If mom doesn't meet your needs, you progress to the next stage, but you know you can't trust people. And therefore, it continues for the rest of your life until you choose now to
change the story.
Start trusting people or trusting myself, right?
Yes. And so I feel like that was part of our conversation yesterday as well, was because they had their conversation. She's going to continue letting you know that. But you know, our core belief in here is that everything outside of you is a reflection of inside of you. And when it came down to it, my question kept coming up to Lynn is, how is this you in previous relationships? Not how is this your previous relationships or the person you were with, because it's not fucking about them. This comes down to you. So when we go to our spouse and say like, I'm feeling jealous, we need to express our emotions. We need to talk about how we feel. But we also need to acknowledge that this is completely about myself and that you didn't necessarily do something to initiate it. Where am I feeling this?
Right.
So tell us about how your conversation went.
So, I mean, then he got angry and then said I was accusing him. And I mean, I'm not. Anyways, so then he gets angry and we have agreements around that. We've talked lots about agreements and emotions, right? So I know that jealousy isn't an emotion, it's a thought that's covering up an emotion. And in that moment, that emotion is fear. So I touched upon it in myself. I'm afraid that I'm going to be left alone. I'm going to be rejected.
Because I am not enough.
So we have agreements. The agreement is I mean, we did a whole thing with him the other day, right? His emotions can be a lot higher and activated than mine. And so he gets really upset. And then he says, I can't do this. And he leaves. And so then I'm really upset, like trying to process.
Leaves the room. Let's clarify. He leaves the room. He doesn't leave her. He leaves the room because he doesn't want to lash out.
Yeah. So a little bit of time and then eventually comes back in and, you know, it starts on the same train of like, I'm accusing and this can't keep happening. And like, he's not a piece of shit, you know, that's just going out and sleeping with a bunch of people. And he should be allowed to have friends that are girls. And funny enough, we had seen Meridee's coach post something that talked about the fact that like this idea of not being able to have friends of the opposite sex, especially if they're beautiful, is like it's making the patriarchy like even more valid in the fact that you can't be friends with someone just because they're good looking, because what, you need to fuck them? Right? Like, so this just kind of like builds upon it that maybe my partner can have friendships without fucking them, even if they are beautiful. Because I don't know. I don't know what this person looks like.
She was wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
It was just the fact that she was a girl.
Yeah. So, you know, we kind of moved through it and then he's talking to me a little bit and he's like, I showed you the story. I'm like, trust me, like I go with my head all the time being like, yeah, I mean, that would be stupid to show me the story if something's going on. But like, also I've had a lot of experiences where people are stupid and they let something slip and then they're like, oh shit, that I shouldn't have done that. Anyways, that regardless, I said, listen, this is not about you. Like, I literally feel like such a piece of shit that I feel like anyone out there is better than me. And that at any point you're going to recognize it. That's my experience. And that's how that projects out there.
Every time I hear it, it breaks my heart that that's how you see yourself, that I'm such a piece of shit. Because though I may not have a ton of self-worth, I certainly don't see myself as a piece of shit. And that's where I feel the self-worth versus the self-confidence comes in. Because the confidence is what she projects to other people, which is, I got my shit together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the self-worth is not just I'm not enough, but like even deeper than that, that I'm worse than not enough. I'm what you step in. I'm what you smear. I'm not even worth it. You're just going to wash your hands of me. And that, like, that came up in your coaching session or in your counseling session as well, if you're open to sharing that.
So the next day, literally, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the next morning.
I have a counseling session, and I said, like, it's like I'm stuck in the personal development world. Like, I've come to a place of like recognizing where the story comes from. Okay, my mom wasn't the nicest person when I was a kid. So I recognized one of my stories. We did the picture of you, right? Unconscious, subconscious mind. Go ahead and check it out. It's a really valid and important lesson. So I've become aware of the stories, right? Everything I do is coming from the story. I'm unlovable. I don't belong, and I'm a fat piece of shit. All rooted to I'm not enough. Stories I made up based on my parents' actions when I was a kid. Remember, keyword I made up. It isn't necessarily that they did that. So I have this session and I show up as this spiritual smart being that coaches other people through all their shit all the time. And I start saying this, and he's like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I understand that, but like, why? And it was like, wait.
No, he said, where is the
evidence?
That's what he asked her.
I mean, that started coming through. He's like, why is that story so valid? Because I'm like, I got the answer. I know this. I know that. I know that. Like, from this spiritual personal development place. And yet it's like, I'm fucking stuck in it. Like, if I'm coaching other people, like, what do you want? One of the things that I'm bypassing by focusing on money and success is that I want to love myself, so that I don't see like this gargantuan, disgusting, like Jabba the Hutt always comes to mind since I was a little kid. That's what I see when I look in the mirror, like slimy and all. And so I don't want to see that. And that's why I think like somebody's going to realize like that's me. And then they're going to realize someone else is better for them. I mean, one of the things I don't have going on right now is bringing in a fuck ton of money. And that has always been a reason that I've accredited people loving me.
Yeah, that's, and yet that just shows us, because then it also affects you in the opposite way of like, hey, look at me, I made $100,000 this month. And then look at me, I made $1,000 this month. Now I'm a piece of shit and I'm only good or a quality being when I'm making $100,000 a month, which is where us.
Which is one of my stories.
And when we start to go down that road, the only time I have any value is if I'm making a ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't even have that now. Like, usually I would tell you that Ruff is with me because of my money, but like, that's not it.
It wouldn't be the answer anyways, but that was the story that she would tell herself.
How fucking dysmorphed I am in my head is the fact that then what I do is not only that, like, I don't just use that as like, actually, maybe that's not the truth. And maybe he loves me actually because I'm attractive and I'm kind and I'm loving and we're
and she has value.
What I go to is, oh my God, this person has come in and he pays well, like he's contributed to the property and and he buys dinner and he does all these other things, but like also contributes to like a couple $100 worth of bills for the month, or a few hundred, let's say a few hundred. And I think I don't even recognize that I've come into the relationship with a home. I don't recognize I've come into the relationship with a vehicle. Like, I don't even take account for the things that I do have, because I can be so incredibly, like, I call it dysmorphia, like not just of my physical body, but of my entire value, that I've been like, oh my God, he is everything. He is all the money. Look, what a piece of shit. I just have all this debt. But then it's like, I sat down one day and was like, dude, you have a home. Like, and you pay the bills on your home, and you pay the bills on your debt, and you like, there's just this part of me that can't even recognize the parts of me that do have some value.
But again, I want you guys to go back on that as well, because for me paying the bills doesn't give me value. I could have nothing and still be an incredibly valuable person. How I contribute to humanity, how, like, we talked about this yesterday, you are valuable to me in so many ways that I can't even put into words. Her children feel the same. My children love their auntie. And that they don't even, her only name is Auntie. Like, and when they come, when I say to the kids, hey, Auntie's coming, they're like, they get excited. Caden loves it because him and her play VR together. And then like they do their thing. And if Caden and I had a problem, she'd be the first person that he's like, Auntie, you gotta fix this. Cause
tell mom she's being a psycho.
yeah. And then all of a sudden she's like, well, I think you guys are both wrong. And then Caden's like, damn it. But then he listens. So there's value that she provides in just being who she is.
This is what was really cool yesterday, of like showing up with all the right answers and then being incredibly wrong, is like, but not, you know what I mean?
Hey, wait, explain that further.
So it's like, yesterday he says, what's the evidence? What's the evidence that you were worthless? Because I was saying I feel worthless, and then I have these stories that I'm unlovable and, you know, I don't belong and I'm a fat piece of shit. And he goes, well, then like, what's the evidence? And it's like, well, you know, he's like, with the unlovable, like clearly you have people that love you, like you have kids. I'm like, yeah, but I can explain that away. Like they kind of have to.
No,
Because
they
like
don't, though.
I help them. And he's like, okay, but I also heard you say that you were worthless and invaluable. Like it sounds like you also have value to people. You're a teacher. Like your kids go to you for advice. Your sister's here with you to support you while you get married. I'm like, I mean, he's like, how do you feel about that? And I'm like, all I can think of is touche. Because I literally have these arguments and they're so morphed in my head that they're not even correct. Like I'm telling you how I am of value, but I see that as me being valueless. It's very interesting. And so then I started talking about like a lack of confidence, and he said, that's not what I see in front of me. And then it hit back to the stories that we've been talking about with Meridee this whole time. I have confidence, but what I recognize is I don't have worth. And that's definitely what's been coming up for me, is like my partner's just going to leave me because everybody else is better than me. And there's no way that he can actually love me. And what I started to recognize was not just these stories, but the fact that, you know, both of us have been in our masculine, right? We both not only look like we do,
Short hair, tattoos.
Consistently ask, like, were you with me the other day? Yeah, we were in the airport with that guy, and he asked if I was with a Tico or a Tica. And so those are Tico, Tica, local Costa Ricans.
Meaning female or male?
Male or female. And so I was like, yeah, thanks, buddy. Like, I appreciate.
And when my best friend and I hang out, she's literally like, yo, we're a couple, can you tell? And I was like, Jesus, just because I have short hair does not mean I like women.
Yeah.
I look cute with short hair, y'all.
So that's like a consistent thing too, is like and then also I'm queer. So on top of it, it's like, hey, fuck you, but also like, okay, thank you.
Touche.
For the respect of like recognizing that maybe I'm not with a man, but like also fuck you just because I have short hair. So
yeah,
like going through that piece is and what I recognized when I was talking to the counselor yesterday was this idea of the feminine and the masculine. So yeah, I've got these stories, and yeah, I'm stuck in the stories, and it's time to let them go, because what do I want, right? When I teach in coaching, I look at the fact of like, where are you right now? Like you need to be honest with yourself. You need to create a story of where you are right now. And then that means like who you are right now. And then create the vision of where you want to be, which also coincides with who you want to be. Example, where I am right now, a lot of the story has to do with people pleasing. And what I see, like this successful, strong, powerful CEO running these successful ass businesses, is there is no people pleasing there. That's just an example for you to be like, what is she talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So in order for me to move to where I want to be, who I want to be, I have to let go of who I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, holy shit, in all of this and all of this teaching to everybody else, like one of the things I haven't recognized is that where I am right now is shifting into my feminine. Right?
Which is interesting because, of course, the two of us are doing the same thing at the same time, running parallel again.
Yeah. My pictures based on my stories. This is where the stories help, not to get stuck in them, but to help. Is
Understand.
like, yes, Meridee for me has always represented the feminine, right? Everybody's like, Meridee's a model. Meridee should be a model. Meridee's so beautiful. Meridee's so thin. Meridee's this, Meridee's that, blah, 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 blah. And so it was like, take care of your sister, protect your sister. Meridee being thin has translated to me, Meridee being weak and fragile. I have like a bigger body. I can protect her. I'm more the bodyguard. My mom comes after her. Fuck you. I get in there and I can take the beating because I have fluffy skin and big bones and all this shit. So, and Meridee's weak and fragile. So for me in my head, what I recognize is like, first and foremost, I see my mom in the masculine as well.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
I've been there. And when I am with a man, I tend to pick men that can be quite feminine.
Yeah.
Or chauvinistic.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at that, I need to be in my masculine. I need to make the money. I need to make the decisions. I need to do this. And now I'm with a grown ass man.
I feel like when we talk about the masculine too, the masculine is like the doing, the doer, the one who like, so in my experience with the plant medicine recently, I literally was shown myself letting go, which is being in the feminine,
Right.
which is going with the flow, which is that gentle beauty, that softness that I felt like I didn't have for a really long time. And then having this conversation that we had, understanding to her it was weak, and to me it was incredibly beautiful. Soft, not weak, soft.
Yes.
And to understand that there was that big difference between us, but that we're both looking for the same thing.
And it's a great like pause and slow down and remember to explain is like, because for a long time I understood the feminine to be females and the masculine to be males in general. So when I'm in my masculine, I'm acting like a male. And that's not the truth. So if we look at Chinese medicine, something that most people are aware of is the yin yang symbol, right? And within even the yin yang, like within the dark is still the light, and within the light is still the dark. And so that's Chinese medicine. Another Eastern philosophy you might be aware of that I have spoken about once or twice is yoga. And if we translate that, it's not yin and yang, it's masculine and feminine. And in order for us to be completely balanced, we need to be balanced in both. So my problem of being in the masculine is that I'm always out of balance.
And always doing. That there's no stopping.
There's no being. It's always like action and goal oriented and moving forward and hard.
And this is where that balance needs to be, because you can't always go or you'll burn out for 10 months to a year.
Right. So
finding that action that then is followed by that softness of letting it happen. We really have this thing where we're warriors. We have had to fight our way through. And so that's what we do. So if you think about being in a river, we're trying to swim up the river, and never do we let ourselves just go with the flow down the river. We're always trying to fight. And we're not going to get where we want to go by fighting what is trying to take us where we're supposed to go, which was, again, a part of my lesson yesterday in let it go, because I've got you. Let it go.
So that's been my recognition. So I, a couple years ago, signed up for a retreat, not really knowing what I was signing up for. So we're not really allowed to like talk about it, of like the name, the
details
or whatever, but I can tell you it was way out of my comfort zone, and it turned out to be like quite a sex retreat. I was just like, oh shit, I didn't realize
a lot
what
of
I signed up for.
nakedness.
Yes. And it was very healing for me. I participated, and then there was like extracurricular activities. I did not participate in those. So part of that, and the lesson came through yesterday when I had my session of like, oh, this was the lesson. I mean, I was in fight or flight when I was in that retreat, because I did not think I signed up for this chaos. And one of the lessons was to create a vision of the masculine and feminine so that you can call upon it when you need action, as opposed to when you need to receive. You know, when you need to be hard instead of when you need to be soft, like to call or draw upon the energies of yin and yang. And the idea it of course was sexual, but it had to do with like creating a picture of your inner divine masculine and your inner divine feminine. And so what I realized was I just touched a few penises and let people stare at my vagina.
Something I would not be able to handle. So kudos to you.
And it hit me yesterday of like, oh, I am in my feminine. And the reason that I feel worthless and disgusting and not of value and I'm not making money because I'm in the being is I see the feminine as pathetic. I see the feminine as weak. And I don't want to say that that's how I see Meridee. What I saw when Meridee was young was weakness. And to me, in translation, weakness is pathetic. And I cannot be pathetic. Other people can. That's fine.
And she can protect the pathetic.
I'll protect the pathetic. And so now here I am in my pathetic. And that was very like, oh, so what I need to do now in order to increase my worth is first and foremost, read the book that Meridee has gifted me now.
Which is
called
the worthy one.
And then now I need to sit down and like, really, like, who do I want to be? Where do I want to be?
How much do I want to love myself? Because that's a big one.
And then creating a picture of the divine masculine and feminine, because we also have the toxic, right? If we have the divine, we have the toxic. And right now I'm in my toxic feminine. It's not helpful. It's chaos. It's jealousy. It's low self-esteem. It's chaos. It really is.
It's weakness and pathetic.
Yeah.
Even though it's not weak or pathetic, it's soft. But we were not taught soft. We were taught aggressive, go for it. And in those things, I'm also grateful for those because I wouldn't have done what I've got done with my life if I didn't have all of those things. It's now finding that balance. And of course, the pendulum goes from here and swings all the way to the other side before we can find our center. And she's on this side coming back into the center. And there's all these lessons, if you open your eyes to them, to allow us to start to find that peace. And I want to say that self-worth is the most important thing that you're ever going to find, because in that self-worth, again, it's you and it's your internal, and nothing can change it. Not the value of the money you make, not the value of your bank account, not the houses, none of those things. And instead, that just the way I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm perfect exactly there. Not pathetic, not weak, but perfect.
And it does bring us back to the conversation, which then with Rafa that continued, in which I felt like he actually heard me say this, like, isn't about you, it's about me. And it's about the way that I feel about myself. And he put down his guard and listened. And that really had to happen. Because in a healthy relationship, people are allowed to have their emotions. Yesterday, I had an idea of like, also, I wasn't really okay with his reaction to my reaction, which is hypocrisy, really. I'm saying like, I'm allowed to have my emotions, like support me and be there for me. And then in the same value, like
he's having his emotions and she's like, no.
Supporting his emotions. And so he let down his guard. And then that was an incredibly healing moment. I need space to be able to talk about how I feel, or I'm going to clam it up. And then
we're back to not being authentic. We're not being honest.
She does the best job of creating up the most incredible stories. And I sit with them and I lament on them and I stay up all night on them. And that's what eventually leads me to like, well, I better double check and check out my partner's phone. Because that's definitely something that comes up in my head of like, if I just do this,
I'll find what I'm looking for. But here's the thing, you will. Even if he's not doing anything wrong, you're going to find what you're looking for, and he's going to have done something wrong. And this is where talk to yourself more than you listen to yourself comes in. And even Tony Robbins taps his head. As soon as you start telling a story and it's in your head, he'll start tapping his head, and then everyone in the room starts tapping their head. So you know you're in your head. And his quote is, get in your head, you're dead.
Yes.
Because listening to your own story, your ego's trying to protect you from any kind of pain, any kind of hurt. And the only way for you to avoid any kind of pain or any kind of hurt is to be solely alone. So don't get in your head, talk to yourself. So for me, if I start hearing those things, which I don't often, but if I start hearing those things, I start talking to myself, and the talk that I have is the outcome I'm trying to create. I have this vision because within meditation, one of the things that I've been encouraged to do is talk to my inner elder, the person who has already played this all out, knows what's going to happen next. And when I vision her, she has the worst haircut you've ever seen. I'm not even joking, but she glows. I don't see an actual face, but she has bangs, and it comes down like this, and it's very square and it's gray. But her aura is just so feminine and beautiful and spiritual and free. And when I go to her, she always has the answer. And when I leave there, I feel like I take a little more piece of that feminine with me for me to step into. And I feel like with that, we need to talk to ourselves more than we listen, unless we're going deep into meditation. Going into a thought cycle of bullshit isn't going to serve you. And again, if you're looking for something for your spouse to be screwing someone else, you're going to find things you don't like. He maybe had a message with someone and he said something you didn't like, but it wasn't meant the way that you took it. So an example of this that Lynn and I talked about yesterday was, for example, people stare at Lynn and Rafa often. I mean, tattoos, hair, he's got tattoos all over his face, his head, all over his body. And so when they stare, there's a very different perspective coming from two different people. So Rafa and I kind of have the same mindset on this. When someone stares at me, I'm gonna, like, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, I'm gonna stare back to make you as uncomfortable as you're making me. Without like a nastiness behind it, just you're staring at me, I'm gonna stare at you. What are you doing? Why are you making me feel this way? Rafa will do the same thing. Whereas with Lynn, the thought is, tell us, I don't want to say it for you.
It's basically eye fucking.
So you're approving them checking you out by checking them out as well. However, for me, if you're checking someone out, it's like a up and down. It's not just a look. And if you're checking me out and you're making me uncomfortable, I'm going to stare back. Maybe that way you'll look away. But the intention behind mine and Rafa's is very different than the intention behind hers. And what I asked her was, where in your past was that exactly what you were doing? Meaning when someone started eye fucking you and you started eye fucking them back, what was your intention? Because your intention was the eye fucking instead of just making them uncomfortable as they're making you. And having those different intentions really changes what's behind the action that you're taking. So, and I even had a conversation with Rafa today about that and asked him, like, when you're doing it is because they make you uncomfortable and he's like, yeah, it's like a fuck you. And I was like, mine's similar, maybe not quite as fuck you-ish, but also very, you're making me uncomfortable. Whereas with Lynn in previous things, it was always looking for someone who's better than the one that you're with because she's not good enough for herself. So why would she be good enough for anyone else?
I mean, if your theory was valid, then they would stop looking, but they don't. They take that as an invitation to continue to look at you.
So why don't you then take it as a compliment that someone is staring at your man like that? For me, the jealousy part, I've only ever in my relationships felt jealous when I truly felt like the person was going out of their way to make me feel jealous. So in the example of, say they're standing there flirting with another person. Now you're making me uncomfortable because now you're actually like giving them hints that you like them. And I did have that experience with one of my exes. We were in Mexico and this chick was awesome. I even liked her, and him and her kind of hit it off in like a super friendly way. But the way they were flirting, and then she got uncomfortable because she saw me seeing them flirt. And suddenly she kind of like stepped back and started talking directly to me instead. And that was what made the difference, because now he's stepping out of line, but she recognized it and was like, no. Him and I did have a conversation about that later on because it was inappropriate. That was the only time I ever felt jealous. Him dirt biking with other girls, him being at a bar with other girls, him we were even in the car one time and the girl was like, are you going to drop Meridee off? And he was like, what? I'm on my way to drop you off. She's like, yeah, you should drop Meridee off and then just come home with me. And he's like, she's my girlfriend. And I'm sitting in the passenger seat. And he's like, she's my girlfriend. We'll drop you off. And she was like, no, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, are you serious? And he's like, I can pull over and let you out right here if you'd prefer. Because you can stop talking like this now. She's my girlfriend and she's the one I'm taking home. And I was like, yes. So he put it out there to make sure that I was comfortable. I don't know that I ever then, I feel like, I don't know what I'm getting this hit of, but for me, I didn't go down this road of ever later on thinking, oh, he's going to go back and fuck her. Whereas I feel like he would have.
Actually, my partner, I've never had a partner do something like that.
That's kind of sad. See, and that was at the beginning of our relationship, but he didn't, and he was a player, okay? He was a guy who just banged everybody. But he had my back in that moment, and especially feeling so like, wow, what the fuck is wrong with this chick? Like, she's outright, and she had her head in between the two seats saying this to him. Well, I'm sitting right here. And I was just taken back, like, what is happening right now? And then he put her in her, I didn't need to say anything. I didn't need to give her a look. I just kind of sat there staring forward, wondering what was happening. And he took care of it. So in my head, I didn't go to, oh, after, or if we're not together, he's going to go to her. Like, it didn't come to me. What's going on with you right now? Tell me. There's a lot of emotion in Lynn right now.
Yeah, it's like, it's no one ever having my back. And so even when it comes to, that's what's happening for me, is that even when it comes to the stairs, following people on Instagram, it just, to me, it's ways that people don't have my back.
Okay. Okay. Fair. And ways that you could be more supported.
That if my partner knows that I tend to lean to jealousy, or feel insecure, that they have my back by just not doing those things. Because what value is it to have people on Instagram, and what value is it to have a stare contest with someone if it's at the expense of my feelings?
Fair. And I validate that 1,000%.
It just was like a hit that just came through now. It's not like I've felt this before. I just was like, oh, this is why. Because you know what? I get not putting past relationship stuff on present relationship, but also it's important that the present relationship shows up different than past relationships have.
And so for that piece, there's this guy I follow on Instagram. I want to say his name is Chris Perry, and he is what I would consider probably the ultimate man. Now, that is what he puts out. Okay, so I don't actually know what this guy is like, but the perception that he puts out and the conversations that he has are all based on being the best man and the most masculine man that you can be, which is supporting your spouse in all of these ways. And one of the reels that he had just recently that I actually shared was, if your girlfriend asks you not to like someone on Instagram, do just that. Because when you like girls' pictures or you follow the girls even after you've been asked not to, you're making her question her trust in you. Whether that's your intention or not, what is the deal? What's the big deal of you not following the person or not liking the picture? Or whereas when you do like the picture or you do like the follow them or whatever it is, you're actually putting your trust into question. Is that worth it to you? Because that reel hit so hard for me in like, it's not that big of a deal. Like what are you getting? What type of hit are you getting other than a dopamine hit? Maybe by liking someone's post. See the post and let it go, or don't follow them at all. Because your girl has asked you not to, because for whatever reason, her shit comes up and is going to affect your relationship. What's more important to you? It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't need to be.
Again, we're talking about balance, right? If your girlfriend doesn't let you talk to any other girl and your girlfriend is completely jealous and even talks about like when you look at someone or every time you talk to someone or if you have any female friends or anything like that, I mean, that's control and that's not okay.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even be in that relationship, and I definitely don't show up in that way. So when I do have moments of feeling a certain way, I mean, that's what I'm feeling in this moment, is like, what value is it?
Where is the value in continuing to do the things that don't need to be done? Because there's no value that's serving you, and in fact, it's taking away from you. But I feel like there's so many places that we don't actually separate the two and see, this is like this, me liking a picture and then me just being defiant to my partner to say, well, fuck you, you don't have control over me. Where's the value in that? And how is that going to grow your, yeah, and how is that going to grow the relationship? What do you want? If you want this person, then do a couple things that make her more comfortable. And then women need to do the same thing for their partner. How can you show up more fully for the person that you're with? And who cares if you think that that's a way to say fuck you, or a way for them to control you? If it's not actually controlling, it's not toxic.
But
I'm asking you.
Like, yeah, I get that. And then let's pull out of it, because I feel like we're moving into a different space in our podcast too. Like, yes, and because how's this going to help? Right. I think in general, like, I hear you. And I think that that's a really great, actually, red flag. But here's my experience, is like, how many people actually see red flags and then do something about it?
Not many.
They see red flags and then they get really fucking upset. Like, okay, great. Now everybody's going to go check out Chris Perry. Is that his name?
Yeah.
And then like send the Chris Perry thing to
their spouse.
partner.
I mean, I'm okay with it.
not work on their own self-esteem, because that's the piece. Like, because now I can sit here and focus on that, and how maybe in some situations I may not feel like my back is had. And then that's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the fact that I am of value, and red flags will be red flags that I will do something about when I love myself. Right? Like,
I feel like that part of it, though, isn't like a conscious behavior that these men or women take. It's not like I went into it thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to like this because fuck her. I think this is where our growth needs to come. And yeah, we need to always be looking at the fact that anything I'm projecting out there is my own shit.
Right.
100%.
And I talked about this with, Sari invited me in to speak with her, and her partner actually invited me in to speak with her and her partner. And one of the things that I kept saying, because Sari was so like, there was just not like getting through to her. Her guard was so up. It was like, if this is where you're coming from, how long do you think your relationship is going to last? Like, how long do you think your relationship is going to be good? It's already to the point where it's not, like, you're fighting all the time. And it's because both people are coming from this place. And it is unconscious, but it's still just like, fuck you. You've hurt me, so fuck you.
Yeah. And yet vulnerability, like when Rafa dropped his guard the other night with her and was able to like feel it, it's hard to come at somebody with a harshness when you basically like open your heart up and just put it out there.
Which is what I did. I said, this isn't about you. I feel so worthless that I'm afraid you just want anybody else but me.
Yeah. And that doesn't feel very good. But to be able to open up like that allowed him to drop his guard and open up like that. And then you're not coming from a place of anger, but a place of love.
Right. It feels easy for me to do, because I feel like I mean, anger isn't something I touch upon a lot. So it does feel a little bit easier to come from that place. I really don't like to fight. It's just something that is just.
And we've had enough of it in our life, enough.
So what I like have really felt from the last couple of days, especially then after Meridee's, day yesterday, which you can check out the podcast before this one, was really about let it go. Like, I'm kind of stuck in this space, and even in this moment had a new insight, which was really helpful. And it's like, I have to let go of those stories that I'm unlovable. Like, I'm glad I recognize them, and I'm glad that I've been acting from that place. But like, and I've advised Meridee on this many times, like, but like, also, you're a fucking adult. Like you get
Stop
to create
blaming.
the story now. So do that. And it's amazing that that's why I was seeing that in Meridee, because our outer worlds are a reflection of our inner worlds. And so if I see it in Meridee, it's because it's in me. And when I saw her like continually like bringing up mom, 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 and there was like an element of blaming to it instead of just like, oh, here's the thing. Well, no shit, I'm doing the same thing, only I'm doing it in a nice way because that's how I am. I'm nice and I'm a people pleaser, and I'm still seeing that like I'm unlovable is I'm stuck in it. And I just have to like not be. I get to choose how I think, and I keep thinking that way. And I'm all like, oh, I'm so spiritually enlightened because I see it now. But it's like the story then is I'm fucking lovable. Period.
I'm loved, which makes it so that you are lovable because you're already loved.
Yeah. And so who I want to be is someone that loves herself and recognizes her own value and worth.
Who you are becoming, you mean?
Yeah. I mean that piece too, but like also just in the idea of like mapping it all out and then mapping out what my divine feminine and masculine look like, so that when I need to call on the masculine, I don't go into overworking, which is something that I do a lot. I like avoid everything just by work, 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 work. And that's a toxic masculine. So how can I find these places of divine feminine and divine masculine, as those are like who I want to be? And then I just call on them, because Tony Robbins will always say, like, how do you know a dog is yours? Because you name him and he comes when you call.
Mic drop. I
Yeah.
feel like that was a really great place to end this podcast. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah.
This one was especially vulnerable, and we appreciate you guys joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us on this spirited journey today.
We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of self-improvement with us. Two sisters who found their own unique paths.
Remember, life is a tapestry of experiences, and it's how we embrace them that makes all the difference.
So whether you're on your yoga mat, exploring mindfulness, or simply navigating life's twists and turns, always keep that spirit and sass alive.
We are Colynn and Meridee Hlokoff, and we're here to remind you that happiness and abundance are within reach.
Stay connected with us on social media and keep those questions and stories coming. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, beautiful souls, keep doing the work, keep sharing your experiences, and keep living a life that's authentically you.
And never forget to add a little extra sass to your day.
Spirit and sass.